Hey everyone, today we're going to dive into a really powerful framework that helps cut through all the noise in IT security. We're going to build a mental map of your entire digital world, layer by layer, so you can see exactly where the threats might be hiding. Let's get right into it. So let's kick things off with a question. You've got a great firewall, you've got solid antivirus software, so you're safe, right? Well, that's a really common and honestly a pretty dangerous assumption to make. Real security goes so much deeper than just one or two tools. And the key to understanding this is what we call the 7 stacks of IT security. Just think of it like a blueprint for a digital fortress. It breaks your entire environment, everything from the physical cables all the way up to your application's code, into 7 distinct layers. Each one has its own job, and more importantly, its own unique set of weaknesses. So here's our game plan. We'll start by defining what these stacks actually are. Then we're going to explore them from the ground up. First the foundation, then the core systems inside, and finally, we'll get to the code itself. And at the end, we'll pull it all together so you can see the whole picture. All right, let's begin at the foundation of our digital fortress. These first 2 stacks, they're like the outer walls and the gatekeepers. They are your absolute first line of defense against anyone trying to get in. Stack 1 is all about your big security controls. These are the tools that are designed to protect the entire environment. You've got firewalls blocking bad traffic, antivirus scanning for malware, and monitoring systems like a SIEM looking for anything suspicious happening across the board. You can think of them as the guards standing at the main gate. But what happens when someone tells the guard to just step aside for a minute? This is a perfect example of how easily this stack can be bypassed. See, an employee, JP, he wants some free software, so he just disables his antivirus for a second. That is all it takes. That one click, and now the main gate is wide open, and malware can just walk right in. Now, moving on to the next layer of our foundation, we have Stack 2, the network. This is the actual infrastructure, the routers, the switches, the pathways that connect everything inside your fortress. Think of these as the roads and tunnels running behind your castle walls. And the danger here is so often just simple human error. In this case, Srikanth just forgot to change the default admin password on a router. So an attacker doesn't need any sophisticated hacking tools, they just need to Google the default password. They can literally just open the door and walk right into the network. Okay, so we've covered the perimeter. Now we move deeper inside the fortress, into the core systems. This is where the real work gets done, and honestly, where some of the most critical vulnerabilities tend to hide. Stack 3 is the operating system, the Windows, Linux, or Mac OS that's powering every single server and computer. The vulnerabilities here are really fundamental. Are you missing critical security patches? Is there an admin password somewhere set to password 123? Every little oversight like that creates a potential backdoor. And this really highlights a key principle. Attackers love old software. This company had a server running an outdated version of Windows that had a well-known exploit published years ago. For an attacker, finding and compromising this server was basically a gimme. A simple software update could have prevented the whole thing. Okay, building right on top of the OS, we have Stack 4, the database. This is the vault inside your fortress. It's where your crown jewels are kept, all your customer data, financial records, intellectual property. Protecting this layer is all about controlling who can get into that vault, and crucially, what they're allowed to do once they're inside. And remember, security isn't just about stopping external hackers. In this situation, a developer just needed to read some data, but was accidentally given full admin rights. Because they had all that excessive power, one simple mistake led to a major data leak. It's the classic case of giving someone the keys to the entire kingdom when they only needed to visit one little room. Next up, we've got Stack 5, the web server. This is the software, things like Apache or Nginx, that serves your website or your application to the entire world. It is the public face of your fortress, and because it's always exposed, it is constantly being poked and prodded and attacked. Here is a perfect example of a tiny mistake with huge consequences. An admin named Vid1 left a simple setting called directory listing turned on. This let anyone on the internet see a full list of all the files on his web server. He basically handed attackers a treasure map of the site's entire structure, making their job 1,000 times easier. We've made it. We've reached the very top of our stack. This is the final frontier, the code itself. These last two layers are often the most complex, and they're the source of some of the most damaging breaches out there because they involve the software that's custom built just for you. Let's break this down real simple. Stack 6 covers vulnerabilities in code that other people wrote, which you then use. Things like libraries, plugins, frameworks. Stack 7, on the other hand, covers vulnerabilities in the code that you wrote, the unique logic of your own application. I mean, let's be real. Modern software is almost never built from scratch. We all rely on third-party components like these. But every single library or plugin you add is another potential door into your system. Just think back to the infamous Log4Shell vulnerability. It was found in Log4j, a tiny little logging library used by millions of apps, and it created a massive global security crisis. And here's another classic example. A developer, Sandeep, built a website using an old vulnerable WordPress plugin for just one small feature. An attacker found that plugin, exploited it, and was able to take over the entire server. The weakness wasn't even in Sandeep's own code, but in a third-party component that he trusted. And finally, we arrive at Stack 7, your own custom code. This is where you find flaws in your application-specific logic. Things like SQL injection, where an attacker can trick your database into spilling its secrets, or broken access control, where a regular user can get into admin-only pages. These are the vulnerabilities created by your own team. Okay, that was a whirlwind tour through all 7 layers, from the physical network all the way up to the application code. So now let's pull back and put all these pieces together. This is it. This is the complete cheat sheet for the 7 stacks, all in one place. You can really see how each layer builds on the one before it, right? The security controls protect the network supports the OS, and on, all the way to the top. It's a complete model for how to think about IT security. And if there's one thing you take away from this, it's that security isn't a product you can just buy. It's a process. It's a whole system of interconnected layers. A weakness in any single one of them, a misconfigured router, an unpatched OS, a vulnerable plugin, can bring the entire fortress crumbling down. And that really leaves us with one final and very important question. Now that you've seen the blueprint of the entire digital fortress, I want you to take a look at your own. Which of these 7 stacks is your weakest link?